So, sitting in the lockdown, I think this is a good time to get you guys to know Gautam for one. Second is his upcoming book, which he wants to talk about, which is the second term challenges for Modi 2.0 home and abroad. This is right after his other book, which is on Rajnath Sir, the current defense minister and the then home minister. That was his biography, which Gautam did last year. And the idea is to get Gautam to talk about what makes him an author, so to say, what made him want to write. And in fact, his journey, he's a historian, a film historian. So he's gone from film history to political writing, with, of course, a historical take on whatever his subjects are.
Yeah, so a lot of people are, asking me that what made me write on Rajnath Singh ji when he was the Home Minister and now the Defense Minister, or how did I decide to write this new book on the second term of the Modi government, which is essentially looking at the first year. So from 23rd May 2019 till what we are experiencing right now. See, the idea is that I always liked and enjoyed history. I was a history buff. And the only reason...
That, by the way, I can say. He has a historical take on everything, and history can be boring, but I've got to be honest. Not at the risk of my own husband, but he's very good with his history and very engaging.
No, see, history is boring if you look at it from a boring point of view. But अगर आप एक कहानी के point of view से देखते हो, and see, while growing up, I was always a filmy kid. And in fact, in my 11th, I think it was 11th, just when you start pressurizing people into thinking that what is it that you want to do with your future, क्या करना चाहते हो, क्या करना है, and this is the early 90s I'm talking about. So everybody wanted to be in India. I remember telling my geography teacher that I want to make films, and she was embarrassed. She told me, "Oh, you mean to say documentary films and that kind of stuff?" I said, "No, madam, hardcore masala Bombay cinema stuff." Now, I think why that becomes very interesting for me, or a parameter to go by, is that you always enjoy a good story. You may forget people, you may forget times, you may forget. But immediately, if I ask people that Sholay mein do Ram Singh kaun, so everybody knows, immediately will say कि हाँ एक रामलाल था और एक गब्बर सिंह का बाप वो था. So these are.
Wow, I wouldn't know that.
So you always remember the stories. You remember the great characters. You remember the great stuff. So that is the starting point for trying to understand history and trying to look at the space of something which is very contemporary, very modern into our lives, and how does that have a context kind of thing. So merely context becomes very important, and I keep looking at context from every...
So while Gautam did a very, most of his books, his first book on Rajesh Khanna, it's called The Dark Star. The title of the book was considered very controversial, and he'll explain why he gave that title. And then he went on to his vanity project. I'm so sorry for saying vanity, but it was on, the film that changed Hindi cinema. Look at the audacity of that title.
Statement, yeah.
For the movie called Kyamat Se Kyamat, QSQT. So I was like, Gautam, you really want to say that? That's a statement. It's a bada sentence in a statement. It's totally controversial. So he says, I believe in it. If you look at the history of things. Then, when he wrote on Rajnath Sir, that's one book you would get to know the history of, Jansangh, whether it is Deen Dayal Upadhyay, whether it is
Shama Prasad
Mukherjee, or, how BJP, let's say from the 80s to how it is in the present day, how the PM had a role to play, how Rajnath Sir had a role which makes the Prime Minister. If you see, this the checkpoints that happen. And now what is very engaging is that while Gautam took on this project for his latest book, which is the second term, Modi 2.0, with his challenges at home and abroad, this was more of an intuition that Gautam had that it's going to be a bit of a paradigm shift when you see how India is going to get placed in the world. And if you see what's happening now, you want to elaborate?
So, in India, you can never be away from an election. कभी ना कभी कोई ना कोई election होता है. And then most of the media, most of the psephologists and जितने भी बुद्धिजीवी हैं, they all keep saying that आपने ये election के लिए किया. So every action of a government in power can be seen as an action with the election in mind. But is it really true? I mean, election आप जीतो आप हारो, but the government's work has to be in continue. So I felt that why 2019 elections were significant. See, 2014 elections are a very big event. They are a black swan event, and the fact that BJP came back with such a great and overwhelming majority, and then managed to just sweep all the opposition away. That is unparalleled. But यहाँ पे क्या है? For after a very long time, you were going. A government was going to the electorate with a simple notion that this is our work. Please judge us on our work, and if you would like us to continue the same thing, and vote us in. And for the first time, the manifesto of an election party or of a political party also had a kind of a roadmap. That 2.5 years ka you can check, and then thoda aage jaake you can even look at the milestones that we have achieved. So that is something where you have great faith in what you're doing. But having said all that, in the last 5 years, there has been a very big shift in policies, in the approach that the government of India has, both at home and abroad. Now you nationalized banks in India in the late 1960s. I'm just going to share this live on my Facebook post and on yours also.
Yeah. So
and also just keep looking at the comments.
I'll do that also. So you go ahead and talk. And
so the idea behind the second term book was that the kind of impact that the social schemes of the government of India between 2014 and 2019, really very big path-breaking schemes, जैसे आपका जन धन है, या giving up subsidy on the behalf of people, a clarion call by the Prime Minister of India, and you see how people willingly give up subsidies. Now, these are things which never happened for a very long time. I'm not saying that they did not happen पहले, like during the Indo-Pakistan 1965 war, when Lal Bahadur Shastri ji asked people that आप दिन में एक समय का भोजन कम कर लीजिए ताकि जो food scarcity है वो कम हो जाए, और please donate to the cause of the nation. So people came forward and did that. So ये हमेशा से there have been examples जहाँ पे ये होता रहा है. But for the first time you saw that because of social media also, the connection between the government of India and the average citizen had really shrunk. यहाँ पे आप 1 degree of separation से पे हैं, चाहे वो देश के प्रधानमंत्री हो, गृह मंत्री हो, कोई भी हो, आप एक ट्वीट कीजिए और उनके टाइमलाइन पे और उनके ऑफिस और उनके स्टाफ के सामने वो बात आ जाएगी. इससे पहले शायद ये कभी हुआ नहीं है. तो there is a accountability factor which has been inbuilt. All these things notwithstanding, the most important thing is that कि जो country का image change हो रहा है at an international level, that is something else. That is something that at least our generation or a generation before us has not seen that kind of change happening, but they have seen the other side of the coin. तो जो आप context की बात कर रहे हैं कि आज अगर OPEC जैसी body है, if they say that, if Donald Trump says that you make sure that prices don't drop beyond a point, but the OPEC president tells the US president that we have to keep India in mind, and what Narendra Modi says, we have to take that into consideration before deciding prices. This kind of thing, at least to my memory, has not happened. And I have been looking at current events and politics in India since the early 1980s. So 40 साल के time पे this has not happened.
Gautam Parth says he is actually read your book, Rajneeti. And there's another comment, a question from Sabneet Kachru. She's asking that how is Modi 2.4 different from the 2.1?
So the difference between the two Modi governments is as clear as day and night. आप 2014 से 2019 तक एक फाउंडेशन बना रहे थे. तो take the corona pandemic that we have at hand right now. The way India is dealing with it, the way the government of India has responded, the way the state governments, the way the local governments have responded, is something which is, matchless in the world. The kind of asking 1.3 billion to willingly go into a lockdown.
That's right.
And make sure that essential supplies, make sure that money is coming directly to people is something else. अब अगर जन धन या आपका जो जैम ट्रिनिटी था, जन धन हो या फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन हो, all these things अगर वो नहीं की होती तब, तो आप जरा अनुमान लगाइए कि इस समय कितनी प्रॉब्लम होती. the kind of difficulties that a country like India would be facing would not have been possible to even illustrate. So that is a very big difference. What you sowed in Modi 1.0 is actually reaping benefits in Modi 2.0 right now. I'm not saying that there are no challenges. There are great challenges right now.
But I'd like to say, Gautam, that do you think that what the Prime Minister did in the first 5 years is actually life-saving? Who would have thought that, digital transactions or his insistence for opening a national bank accounts and nationalized accounts in your DBT is in fact what is probably going to save you in a pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, there is a criticism of the government that you did not prepare people well for a pandemic. Now, I want to ask that how do you prepare people for an emergency? आप कितनी भी mock drill करा लो, आप कितने भी उनको scenario situations दे दो, there is no way that you can prepare for something that you don't do. And perhaps this is the first time that you have an enemy which is both seen, unseen, which is also known, unknown. How do you deal with this virus?
And is it this a new way of life now? Are we to somewhere, all the hundreds of conspiracy theories that are coming out, but it does get you to think that, would bioweapons be an issue going forward? Even if this is not, but would it be something that may come in the future? And are we ready for things like that? So when we talk about the armed forces, is it just going to be cross-border, or are we looking at a whole paradigm shift?
Yeah. Completely. So, CDS. CDS is already playing such an important role, and this is the recommendation which was made by the Kargil Review Committee in 1999, and this is also a suggestion which has been there right from the time of independence of India. Lord Mountbatten used to suggest and had told the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Nehru, that you need this kind of a supreme commander. No, these are decisions which people took depending on the scenarios of that time. But if you look at the world today, if you look at a country like Pakistan, which has invested so heavily in psyops, this kind of cyber warfare, you'll be surprised that when I was writing my book on Rajnath Singh ji, Rajneeti, usme when I was researching about the penetration that ISI has, there is a newspaper report of 1991 or 1990. दोनों में से किसी एक साल की है, and it got published in the Pioneer. In that, there was evidence and research material given by investigative journalists who said that back in 1991, there was not a single town in India or a small village in India where there was no ISI presence.
Wow.
They could really create a kind of disruption that you could not even imagine.
So that's a ticking time bomb. Of course, that bomb has gone off many times because so many unexplainable things happen.
And also
there's not context there.
And also the fact that you are fighting an enemy who has openly been against you and who has surreptitiously been funding fissures in India. So be it the entire Khalistan movement, be it the entire Northeast trouble, be it the entire the POK area and that kind of funding cross-border terrorism. ये तो Pakistan is
1,000 cuts. That's the thing is to give India bleeded by 1,000 cuts.
So you had to come to a place where you are ready to play the game that the enemy is playing and beat the enemy at that.
Also now, given the ally is China, look at China has become a big force. So the challenges I think for Modi 2.0 are at a global and domestic level, but at probably at the most that any person would have ever faced.
So you see the standoff that India had with China in Doklam a few years ago. There are countries in Southeast Asia who want now strategic partnership with India because they were all looking at the way India is taking China on this issue of this land issue, because China, be it the South Chinese Sea or right now trying to make a foray into the Indian Ocean.
Yes.
So there is a different kind of battle which is taking place, which is beyond the understanding of many of us. And that is one of the big challenges of Modi 2.0. And right now, the way India has responded to the requests of many countries, be it United States, Brazil, the European countries, England, in dealing with the corona pandemic, be it giving the medicines or allowing some kind of,
Consider hundreds of nations we are giving medicines to. So it's amazing that the HCQ is we are the largest, I think, the manufacturers, and we did not put an embargo on the export, even though this is something that the PM has shown a very large-hearted thing.
So somebody has
Gautam,
asked.
I have many questions for you. One is saying, do you like books or films? Which is more satisfying as a writer? फिर एक और है कि जिंदगी सफर मंजिल मौज और मौत के बीच में कुछ ऐसा भी होता है क्या जिसमें हम मिस कर देते हैं?
बहुत कुछ मिस कर रहे हैं सर. Now the situation that we are in has for the first time forced us to sit back and look back at our own lives and talk. Ideally, ऐसी situation नहीं होनी चाहिए जहाँ पे एक महामारी चल रही हो and then you are pushed into sitting, because it is causing a lot of trouble to people. It is causing a lot of trouble to countries and nations and the world as whole. But be that as it may, the way we are sitting back, suddenly we start looking at things that how much have we missed. अभी कुछ दिन पहले we've had back-to-back great losses, be it Irfan Khan or Rishi Kapoor sir. Suddenly I was thinking of Rishi Kapoor films that I saw in the cinema hall in the 80s. And then I used to think that, just say 1985 when Sagar came, when I saw Sagar in the cinema hall, I was thinking that, 73 when Rishi Kapoor started, 73 to 85 is 12 years, 12 long years. And right now we are in 2020 and we are 35 years from Sagar. And it seems as if the time just went by.
Also, Irfan Khan, you would think that he's a contemporary guy. So whether it's the youth or the old people, he was at that place where you could say not too old, not too young.
So there's another question somebody has asked: why have you stopped writing on films? I haven't stopped writing on films.
His books are coming out. Gautam, peg your books.
So the next film book that I'm working on is a biography of Vinod Khanna. He's an actor who
very good
is
looking actor,
very important in the history of Indian cinema, because he's the only star who probably quit at the top for reasons that were very personal, and then he decides to make a comeback. And he was also the only star who could challenge the Amitabh Bachchan juggernaut at that time. And very successfully also. And when he came back in 1987 with Insaf, the poster had Vinod Khanna in action. So that is a very big thing. So that's my new book. So I like to write on things which have some sort of a historical
Also, look at the
context.
Bollywood connect with politics. So you had Gurdaspur MP Vinod Khanna, now you are Sunny Deol.
Yeah.
And both have been, so to say, icons in.
I love both of them.
What is that? Eye candy. Eye candy of Gurdaspur and India actually.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't think that women used to drool over Sunny Deol.
So if Meghna is watching, I don't know, there's a friend of mine, Meghna, and she was such a fan of Sunny Deol. All of growing up here, Sunny Deol. I was like, okay, really? So, but she was like, are you crazy? He's the best. So,
the only thing I liked about Sunny Deol initially was that he had totally white teeth, and he was a very good swimmer. And then in one of the film magazines, I somewhere read that he used Sibaka toothpaste or something like that. And that became a relentless pursuit for me, that ab yehi toothpaste use karenge. So I like to write on people.
So Gautam, just to make this whole topic slightly coherent, the idea was to get to know the author. So we will start right from the start and go now chronologically. So Gautam, which is your first book? What made you want to write it? Your second book, your third book, your fourth book, and the ones that are coming out now.
So the first book that I started writing was actually the second book that I was offered, and it was my second book in terms of chronology.
Look at me, I'm very ready.
So the reason.
So this is Gautam's first book, and this is on Rajesh Khanna. And honestly, I'm not a film buff, but I love this book. It's quite a page turner. Go get it. It's not for out of with gossip or anything. It's actually quite a historical take on things. It's very engaging.
So the reason I wrote on Rajesh Khanna was because I was trying to work on something which was looking at the leading man in Bombay films through the course of the first 5 decades of independent India's history. So 1947 से लेके 1999 तक I was going to look at the actors who came. So उसमें of course Rajesh Khanna is a very big personality, very big milestone. So he's technically,
Sunny is Punjab da putter.
yeah,
Do
Sunny
you
is
think
in.
actors are doing good as MPs? Oh, what a question. ठीक है.
Of course, you will judge them by a yardstick, by two yardsticks. एक तो कि उनका जो personality or persona है. So tomorrow, if one of the very big actors or actresses decides to become an MP, then you are trying to immediately attribute all their life's achievements to that one reason. So
That
you
they will
think
bring in that kind of action to the MP's job. While MP's job is not really
it's a different ball
ball
game.
game, and it may seem as he's not. They're not doing very much, but it has to be how the MPLAD funds got used. So those are more to do with how much data you're going to go through.
So you look at
and what is the
yeah,
perception
you
of
look
things.
at a member of parliament. I think Khanna was elected 5 times from Gurdaspur, which is the
People
record.
were happy.
And you look at down south, great actors such as M.G. Ramachandran, N.T. Ramarao, Jayalalitha had a very big film background. They are some of the biggest names.
Jayalalitha became a cult lady. Amma was like, you couldn't say a word. And Gautam's Nani is a great friend, and she herself said such a little flower. I don't know what was Amma saying.
She's like a delicate flower. You know, so my Amma used to say that.
So it doesn't look very delicate, but anyway, sorry for that. So Gautam, going back to your
So
journey from your
Rajesh
first to your
Khanna
second book.
was offered as a quickie project once Mr. Khanna passed away. My idea was not to do a quickie project, and like all successful men, there's a very big reason and a woman behind
All
the
rubbish, he
success.
writes himself. I am a very big distraction.
So
Thank you.
she's the one who told me that this is going to be a very important book. So don't worry. See, as young writers or as people who are starting in the publishing industry, you take diktats and
Yeah, that's
deadlines very seriously.
That's true.
So if somebody says it's a quickie, you only think like yes, jaldi.
So Gautam nearly said no to his first project because when the word quickie came in, he didn't like it. So he said, I don't do quickies like that. So then I told him, don't do a quickie, but do it. So that's what we're talking about. That
all good things took a while in coming. So that was the book. I was very lucky while researching my Rajesh Khanna book because a lot of people who worked with Mr. Khanna spoke to me, gave extended interviews, and gave me a very rare insight into the working of the man. And one of the people that I would really like to highlight here is the late J.O. Prakash ji, filmmaker, producer par excellence. He had produced and directed Aapki Kasam. And J.O. Prakash ji, when I was writing my book in 2012, was the only surviving producer of a producer's body that had judged a talent contest in which Mr. Khanna was the winner. So he gave me insights into Rajesh Khanna before the stardom, during the stardom, because he had a ringside seat to that.
You want to describe the scene? You told me about that when he came in a sports car and everybody is such a struggler. And here comes this good-looking guy in a sports car and he
So Rajesh Khanna was Rajesh Khanna, upar aaka niche karta. So he used to go in his MG sports car even when he was a struggling guy because he came from a very well-off family, and he never made any bones about it. In fact, the first outdoor shoot of his career, I think it was for JPCP's Raz that they were shooting somewhere in Kashmir or Himachal or someplace like that. And shooting ke baad in the evening, Rajesh Khanna in his room had some company and they were enjoying a drink or two. And the production manager came and he said, "Ki kal subah ka ek call time hai, you have to come at this time." And he started scolding Rajesh Khanna that you can't do this, you don't drink, you're a first timer and don't do this. He said, "I'll do what I will do outside and off the camera, which is my life. How dare you tell me what to do and what not to do?" So that was Mr. Khanna's personality. In fact,
the total dude.
I quite had a great time rediscovering Rajesh Khanna's films, and the book looks at how it's not just the 3-4 years of superstardom that Rajesh Khanna had and then he just faded away. Somebody with that kind of popularity does not go into oblivion that soon, and the book is an exploration of films of the 80s as well, which looks at Rajesh Khanna beyond that superstar. My second book was on Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak.
Hold on, I'll show you. So I kept all Gautam's books here. So this is that whole iconic image. So this is the one on Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak. The film that revived Hindi cinema. My God, look at the audacity of Gautam's title.
Claim? No, I really believe that. I think that that film came at a time where Hindi cinema was going through a very bad phase. It's not like 80s, which is usually attributed as the worst decade for Hindi films. That's not true. So the book also makes an argument that why the initial 5 years of the 1980s is a very great period for Bombay films, because this is a time where 5, 6 different generations of filmmakers were working at the same time. And the failure of a film called Decade, which was directed by Rahul Ravel, it tried to bring many things into the context of popular films, which popular Hindi films usually don't look at. So it was looking at the caste disparity, it was looking at the law and order situation, it was looking at a lot of things which popular Hindi films में चलता नहीं. The film का failure, because it was made by the same team which made Arjun. There was Sunny Deol in front of the camera, it was written by Javed Akhtar, R.D. Burman was scoring the music, and Rahul Ravel was directing the film. And it was also at a time where Amitabh Bachchan had quit films to join politics full time, and you were looking at the next superstar. So Sunny Deol was a front runner. There was Sanjay Dutt, there was Jackie Shroff, and there was Anil Kapoor. But with Arjun, Sunny Deol was really the leader of the pack, and had Decade been a hit, things would have been a slightly
But now
different.
you're getting carried away. Decade की नहीं अपनी book की बात करेंगे.
So the book looks at how Qiyamah se Qiyamah tak bring.
So the person who actually managed the whole book talk about his life journey, because it's a bit of a biography on him also.
So the book explores the life and times of Mansoor Khan, who directed Qiyamah se Qiyamah tak and later went on to direct Jo Jeeta Hui Sikandar, Josh, and Akele Hum Akele Tum. He's an aberration to Hindi films. Okay, he's Nasir Hussain's son, Amir Khan's elder cousin, Imran Khan's mama, and a lot of other things. But he studied in IIT Bombay. Then he went to MIT Boston, and he also went to Cornell for a little while. Now he's gone to 3 of the world's biggest and the most well-known educational institutes, and never graduated from any of them. Because he believed that the education system was very strange, and he was seeking something that he didn't know what he was seeking. Ultimately,
Requires guts.
he returns to India,
Didn't follow this.
and he makes Qiyamah se Qiyamah tak, and he tells his father कि ठाकुरों की कहानी नहीं बना सकता.
Oh, Gautam, tell about when we went to meet Mansoor Khan. My God, what a remember?
Yeah, so
I have no idea who's who, so I'm like a big embarrassment.
so
when
we
I
are
go
in Mumbai, and I tell Amrita कि चलो let's finish an interview that I have to do with Mansoor Khan. So we go to Mansoor Khan's house, which is actually Imran's house right now. So so we know we ring the bell and all that business is there, and then this guy Imran opens the door, and Amrita is not a Hindi film fan or Hindi film.
I
follower.
have no idea who's who.
She finds this little boy cute, and she says, "You're very good looking. Have you thought of a career in films? Who are you?" And because Imran knows that I'm there to meet Mansoor Khan, he's a little, formal.
He
with
let
me.
it go. Yeah. Also.
Yeah, he says, uncle's waiting for you. Come and you're here to meet Mamu Jan. So then I tell her that, and she has seen Imran's film. What was that?
Sorry, dekhi hoingi. You
Jaane
know what
tu
it didn't
jaane-
click. So
tu
suddenly
jaane-
you have this young thing open the door and he's very good looking. And I said, my God, you are very good looking. So then we met Mansoor Khan, and he and I got into a whole talk on.
So Mansoor now has left films, and he lives on his farm in Uti, and he also has written this fantastic book on the energy crisis of the world and how we have to relook at things. And he and Amrita really clicked, and this is a topic which is right
We
up
went
our
totally
alley.
away from movies, and we went up. Because I come from a background of the industry and so to say, a mix of law and finance, and we got into this whole thing that you cannot keep production and growth at always as if it's going to go. You're going to peak out and then you're going to go down, because these are carbon. These are not. These are fossil fuels. What you're basing everything on. How you're part today. Unless you find so to say free energy, you're not going to have to sustain. So, anyways, again, like we're going off topic. So then, Gautam's interview with Mansoor Khan continued for a bit, and so his personality that
It's
came out
something
was
else.
very
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, I've been a huge fan of Mansoor Khan right from Qiyamah se Qiyamah tak. And I always thought that
So I'll have to quickly, Gautam, we'll jump ship from Mansoor Khan to Rajnath Singh. So this is the book. You have to get this one. This is Rajneeti. And this is a autobiography. It's a biography, and you can say auto also because he had extensive interviews with Rajnath sir. And the quotation is the reason he named this book Rajneeti. Gautam,
So
explain.
it's in the course of one of the interviews that I had with Rajnath Ji that he said something which was, he's a man of few words,
Yeah.
but it's not like he does not want to communicate or he does not want to talk to you. He just says a lot in a very little, selected words. So in the course of a conversation, he just said, and I remember it as clearly as it was yesterday. He said, "राजनीति शब्द में ही नीति है, तो फिर अनीति क्यों?" And then suddenly it clicked in my brain that, wow, that's such a lovely, great, good quote. And I've been very lucky with my titles of my books. And this is Rajneeti, something which again came from Amrita's brain because she said this is a great title. It's a wonderful play of words. It also.
I have a confession to make. So when Gautam was meeting Rajnath sir, I always like to tease people. So normally it's Gautam, but that day I went up to Rajnath sir. So I told him, sir, you're like Rajnikant out of the movies. If imagine yourself in a jeep and you're like in that black kurta pajama and like a dude. So for me, it's like Rajneeti, that kind of a scene.
So
And he's a very nice person, right? He can take a joke.
Yeah, and
Very-
also.
very accommodating.
Also somebody who's very interested in knowing what is happening with the young people out there. So whenever you meet him or whenever you interact with him, he's always more interested in knowing your views.
Yeah.
He's always taking, and this is a trait which I think has been inculcated in him right from his early days. So he is one of the very few political stalwarts out there who has held almost every important position. So as a student, he was associated with ABVP. So he has seen the entire 60s confusion in India firsthand, because this is almost 20 years after the independence of India, and we are reassessing the promises that we made at the time of the independence, and where have we reached or what have we achieved. And then you have the entire emergency.
He was really jailed for a long time.
He was incarcerated during the entire stretch of the emergency, and he was 23, 24 at that time. And he was one of the very few political prisoners around that space who did not apply for a furlough, did not even apply. In fact, the great personal cost that he paid for the emergency was the death of his mother. His mother fell ill while waiting for him, and then
That's a very heartbreaking scene. Yeah, you should read the book.
Unfortunately, she passed away when he was still in prison, and he still did not apply for a furlough or something because these were principles that he believed in. Then later, as one of the first members of BJP, then being associated with BJY, which is the youth wing of BJP, both at the state level in Uttar Pradesh, then at the national level, he's been the party president of BJP
Twice
in
over.
UP, party president of the National Party, and in fact, it was under his party presidentship that BJP won the 2014 elections. And look at the man. He was also the party president in 2009, where the party lost, and he resigned after that. And then fate brings him back to become the party president in 2014 for the 2014 elections. So he also delivers one of the biggest victories. But more than that, what really attracted me to Rajnath Singh's personality and life, and also his politics or his social work, is that my father is from the army, and one part of the family is based out of Allahabad. So I have had the opportunity.
So let me show off. So Gautam's great grandfather was the education minister, and he was the Pope of Indian journalism, and probably one of the first ones at the House of Lords. He's Sir C.Y. Chintamani. And there is this article we read in which it said, Chintamani क्या
मोतीलाल के सामने, चिंतामणि के सामने झुके मोतीलाल, या चिंतामणि के सामने मोतीलाल की हार हुई, घुटने टेके, some line like that.
I was like, Gautam, I'm married into the right family.
Anyway, so we digress. So as a young student, I had read about the landmark decision that he took as the education minister of Uttar Pradesh, where he made where the anti-copying law was introduced. And he's been a teacher also.
Yeah.
So he has seen both sides of the education
physics
system.
professor.
Yeah, and that really blew my brains, And then later when you realize that as the transport minister in the first Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, he's the guy who does the groundwork for the Golden Quadrilateral. Then as the agriculture minister, it was under his ministership that the National Commission for Farming, the first such body was constituted. Professor Sompal Shastri was heading that, and later M.S. Swaminathan became the head of that body. So there are a lot of firsts attached to him. And as Home Minister, he has really gone the whole hog where he has made the country one of the safest
Just
5 years.
because he wasn't in the news that much, one mustn't take away his credit that when things go to plan, you will find that there is not too much of an uproar. So the brilliance of the man lies in the fact that not many were told of how much he was faced with, and things did go according to plan. Whether it was you see the JNU issue at that time, or it was Kashmir, or any of that.
Or even getting rid of the whole Naxal Red Corridor menace that India had.
They really brought it up.
Conducting the first civic elections in Jammu and Kashmir after a decade, which really brought grassroots level democracy into the state and got
First time Ranjeeti elections in Kashmir.
In 10 years.
When all parties want to boycott. So imagine it's not a boycott. They must be looking to do some trouble, no? Otherwise, they don't want it to go to plan. I mean, if you're empowering the grassroots, it takes away the guys who are the big guys for the longest time, family dynasties. You're uprooting.
Anyway, so even so now when we come back to as we sum this up, even in Modi 2.0, there are 2-3 key areas and 2-3 key ministries which are going to play a very big role, and the book also looks at the role that they are playing. So one of them is the Defense Ministry, which is playing a very important role because suddenly there has been a paradigm tectonic shift in how India is being viewed at a world level. And a lot of it happens because India is economically powerful and from a security point of view, it's robust. So that makes a very big role. The Ministry of External Affairs is going to play a very, very important role in Modi 2.0. One of the big dreams of Modi 2.0 is also to transform India into a global superpower and take it to a point where we become a $5 trillion economy. The work is in place for that. Of course, coronavirus will push things and delay things by a little bit, but these are challenges which are staring us in the face, and the way the government is responding to that is what makes this worth chronicling and worth writing. Because see, every day is history in the making. Today, if you look at coronavirus and how we are dealing with it, we don't know what is the next minute going to do, what is the next moment
also,
going
the
to do.
Prime Minister, can you imagine, has voluntarily asked people to obey.
Yeah.
How much of it has come down to a curfew? More of it is about 1.3 billion people. When he comes on TV, everybody complies and says, "We are with you." Imagine how much faith would you have in one person to be okay with being told.
So these challenges and this leadership role that Mr. Modi has played in both terms and continuing to play something of great importance and significance, and I think it needs to be chronicled. Also, what I like to do is that chronicle it in a way where I give a context. So if I'm talking about the biggest elections in the world, which is the Indian general elections, there is a context to it that why these elections are important. If the victory of 2014 and 2019 is important and significant, there are numbers. I don't want to bore viewers right now.
No, I'll tell you, just to sum it up for you, Gautam will always take you back in history and then bring you to present time, and he has a way of doing that, so that because a lot of the kids who are right now, we keep saying these stats again, but they are important. So if you have 65% of the population under 35, 50% under 25, now these kids are kids who have grown up on Netflix or TV or phones ready for them. How many of them really did take the time out to read something that is given in your archives and in your libraries? So if you don't have a context, you don't know where you are headed. You are always going to put yourself on the platform of the West when in fact look at where you come from. So Gautam will give you a historical context of what happened when, what mistakes may have led to what happens now, and what are the reasons we need to fix some of the mistakes, or what are the good things that got passed on for us to deliver on a certain thing. Also, just to peg here, We are, so to say, the golden bird. We were that's oldest surviving civilization on the planet, so to say. But you know, the bird I think is Guru Gobind Singh's. Now we are a barge. We are the hawk, and we got the right guy who's going to take us there. Now, I think Gautam.
That I could not have summed it much better. That this is the slight change that has happened, but such a big change and such a significant change, where after a long time, a billion people are feeling as if they are participating in something.
Yes, yes.
That
All
also
of
makes a
us.
very big difference.
We are all participating where India is headed to go. And a lot of it will be put into context. Do read Gautam's book because it gives you an idea from where we came and where we are headed. And on the side note, don't forget Vinod Khanna.
Yeah.
So give some dialogue or something which gives you the peg for getting his other book, which should be out in the later part of the year.
Well, you know what could be a better dialogue than a tribute to Vinod Khanna also. Unfortunately, we lost Irfan Khan at a very, very young age, at a time where he was really coming into his own. With, after such a great body of work, imagine the possibility. So Irfan का एक हासिल का dialogue है, where he looks at Jimmy Shergill and he says, "तुम्हें याद रखेंगे." So we will remember Vinod Khanna, we will remember Irfan, and do remember to pick my books up. And while you are at it, pick any book up, because this is the time where you can catch up on your reading, and this is also a time where writers can feel a little bit of love if you order their books. So thanks for watching, and thanks for all your comments and all your questions. And
we overshot the time. I think it's supposed to be 30 minutes. But we're so chatty.
But that is what it is. Be safe, and thanks for watching once again.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye bye. Otherwise, I'll get all of them. Where is this one?
This one is right here.